Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight for the annual Distinguished Lawyer Memorial Reception. My name is Aureen Hayquist, and I am proud to serve as the president of the San Diego County Bar Foundation this year. On behalf of the foundation, I would like to welcome each and every one of you and express how honored we are to be inducting 6 of our fellow colleagues into the Distinguished Lawyer Memorial tonight. As many of you already know, San Diego is the best place to practice law, and tonight's program is another reminder as to why. We are so fortunate to have the opportunity to work with exceptional lawyers and judges like those being honored tonight. Those who have lived their lives with grace and commitment and leave our community in a better place than when they arrived. We are all richer for having them as part of our lives and community. And tonight is about honoring their commitment to service and giving back. Now, just as the legal profession is the foundation of our society, the San Diego County Bar Foundation is the foundation of our profession. Tonight, as we celebrate the distinguished lives and careers of each of our 6 inductees, we celebrate our profession's commitment to providing access to justice for all, so that regardless of who you are, where you came from, and what you've experienced in your life, you have the right to have your voice heard. Over the course of the evening, you will learn a little about the special characteristics of our inductees' lives and careers. While they have all served the San Diego community in their own unique way, our honorees tonight have 2 things in common. They have all exemplified excellence in the legal profession, and they made a commitment to providing access to justice to the underrepresented. That's the hallmark of the Bar Foundation's mission. And the goodness of the inductees will not be forgotten. Many of you have already donated in honor of your family, friends, mentors, and colleagues by giving to the Bar Foundation on behalf of these prestigious honorees. On behalf of the foundation, I thank you. Those donations and any money raised here tonight will be used to fulfill our responsibility to the underserved in our community and keep our honorees' legacies of giving back alive. Please help us provide the underprivileged members of our community access to justice and the services that they need and deserve, and otherwise would have difficulty finding. These community members include foster children, at-risk youth, veterans, people with disabilities, the elderly, immigrants, refugees, those seeking asylum, and survivors of domestic violence. It is through your generous donations that the San Diego County Bar Foundation has been able to provide over $4 million to more than 50 local nonprofit and legal aid organizations. Please enjoy this brief video about our mission and the organizations we support.
We're helping immigrants who are seeking asylum. We're helping veterans who are seeking to get their benefits. And we're helping the elderly who are dealing with financial abuse.
San Diego County Bar Foundation is the charitable arm of the San Diego County Bar Association, and it involves a group of attorneys and business people who come together to identify pro bono legal providers who help the underserved with their legal problems. The foundation is scouring San Diego for worthy organizations to provide money to.
I'm a member of the foundation because we vet these organizations that we donate to. We make sure that they are doing good, effective work in the community and they are serving the portions of the population that wouldn't otherwise have an access to an attorney or to legal advice.
The San Diego County Bar Foundation is really critical to supporting our legal services. Legal aid and legal services, even for seniors, is not a favorite. That's where the San Diego County Bar Foundation comes in.
Well, the foundation has done many, many things in support of our work. At the heart of what we do is work to ensure that there is access to justice for asylum seekers, unaccompanied children, and victims of serious crime, so as to ensure that they have protection. To know that the San Diego County Bar is standing with us to ensure that persons get access, quality access to our justice system.
The key thing that you have to consider is that when you make a donation to foundation, you are outsourcing all the due diligence and hard work that it takes to identify those startup pro bono legal providers that otherwise wouldn't get that seed money to really start doing good in the community.
Everyone has a right to have an opportunity to be heard, and the San Diego County Bar Foundation ensures that that happens, that is, in San Diego County, a reality.
I think everybody should have access to legal aid. If they're dealing with an issue, then they should have the right to an attorney who knows how the system works and is able to articulate their case in a way that would best help them.
How important is it for that kind of work to be done?
It's essential, because if we're not doing it, nobody else is going to do it. You cannot expect your average person to navigate the legal system without the expert advice of a competent attorney.
If you are interested in donating on behalf of one of the 2021 inductees, please visit our website at www.scbs.org/donate-DLM. Or you can find us at Venmo at SECBF. Donations of any and all amounts are welcome and will support our ongoing efforts to provide access to justice to those less fortunate in our community. On behalf of the Board of Directors and the grantees who have been fortunate enough for us to fund, thank you. And now, on to our program. Our first inductee tonight is Mr. Gerald Blank, known to most as Jerry, who will be presented by Ms. Bonnie Demanis.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Demanis, and I'm honored to pay tribute to my dear and crazy friend, Jerry Blank. In 1982, Jerry opposed me in a preliminary hearing. He proved he was more than a worthy adversary, but an annoying one. I had to cancel a paid trip because he demanded federal reports I hadn't received. Well, the judge ordered me to get them to him over the weekend. So I did. I hand-delivered them to Jerry at his home at 5 o'clock in the morning. He met me at the door. Fortunately, he kept his robe on. It was then that we forged a nearly 40-year friendship. Jerry was a fierce advocate for those who found themselves in the criminal justice system. Whether in the courtroom, the classroom, or the boardroom, his passion and sense of justice and fairness was always evident. From his law school days at Loyola University as student director of the Clinical Legal Assistance Program, to his stellar career as a criminal defense lawyer with awards too many to mention. For 31 years, he was a board member of the Defenders Organizations of San Diego and a founding member of the San Diego Indigent Defense Grant Fund. Jerry was intense, passionate, lived life to its fullest. Whether it was flying one of his many planes, skiing in Mammoth, where he owned a second home, or traveling the world, it was with the awe of a child that he experienced it all. Despite a busy career, he always found time for his family and friends. He was generous, with a dry sense of humor and twinkle in his eyes, ever ready to share his opinions with all, whether they wanted them or not. Jerry was in perpetual motion, never stopped, always thinking, always doing, and exploring new things, with passion for each activity. Not only the law, but aviation and various nonprofit boards. For more than 3 decades, he volunteered in the kitchen of St. Vincent de Paul. And even at age 68, Jerry applied for a board position with the Mammoth Lakes Recreation Board. He was a character with incredible character. He was instrumental in my judge and DA races, but was clear he would not ever use his friendship or support of my campaigns to gain advantage for any case, client, or others. But he made sure to tell me when he thought I was screwing up. Speaking of elections, in each campaign, he would purchase boxes and boxes of pens, especially for my mom and dad. I have many left, and they still work. But Jerry had no greater passion than his love for Mary, his sweetheart for almost 27 years. He talked about her all the time. He absolutely delighted in her musical talents and was her biggest fan as she played in concerts with the San Diego Symphony. One thing we can all agree on is that Jerry was unique, exceptional in all ways, and he did it his way. He is well deserving of the Distinguished Lawyer Award and would have been proud to share the stage with his fellow awardees. And now, please enjoy this video.
He had a kind of a magnetism that strangers would notice him. He was kind of bigger than life. He was totally committed to whatever he was doing.
Jerry was a presence. He was a force to reckon with. He had a big laugh. He was generous. He was giving. At the same time, he was a tenacious person and a fierce advocate for his clients.
When he was in trial, he would work crazy hours, give the trial every ounce of energy he had. Once the trial was over, he was flying to Mammoth or somewhere the next morning, having just as long days, pushing himself, skiing and hiking.
We had lots of friends, loved to entertain, we loved one another. I think we brought out the best in one another.
He was assertive. He had a very strong side to his personality, and he had a very soft, gentle side to his personality.
He would never back down from a challenge. I would never dare him to do anything because he would always do it. To earn his love and respect was not easy, but once you did, you were so close that you were considered more like family to him.
He was tenacious. He was a contrarian. If everybody thought that things are going that way, he would say, well, why not that way? He looked at things in a very unusual way. And I think that's why he was successful in the courtroom, because he could make people see things differently.
When I met him in 1980, we both had pilot's licenses, and we shared for the next 40 plus years our love of aviation.
He had a passion for flying. He loved to travel. He loved to explore the world, go everywhere. With his flying, he also did volunteer work. He would fly wounded warriors, sick patients to hospitals. When he took a client, he was all in for that client, and he turned so many lives around, and they stayed close long after the verdict was given.
Jerry's impact was that he kept the system honest. He didn't take what was offered to him and walk away. Jerry clawed and scratched for everything that he could get for his clients.
He left me with a thirst for life, being present, living every moment to the fullest, to cherish the people in your life that we have around us, to have a career that we love, want to master, and work hard at. And he was always available if someone was having a case that went backwards on them. He would give them great advice. We were on vacations many a time, and he would get calls from people, and he loved helping people.
Jerry was someone you could always call. He would always talk to you about any personal issues you had. He was generous to a fault with his time and his financial support for causes that he supported. When someone asked what he did, he would say he is a damn good lawyer, not just a lawyer. He really liked to mentor clients after the trial and wanted to show them that their life wasn't over and they had a new opportunity. Jerry had a way of bringing people together, and one of his classic parties
for the legal community was the hanger party.
Jerry and I thought that we needed to share all the video that we shot with our friends. So we decided to have a party in the airplane hangar. For many, many, many years after that, we had the annual hangar party, and it was quite an event.
It's awesome to know that the legal community is honoring him with this recognition. He gave every trial everything he had. Knowing that his peers are recognizing him would be very meaningful to him.
Criminal defense is what made his blood boil. Nothing like a good fight for somebody's rights really got him going.
He was my role model. He was respected by his colleagues, by his opponents, by the bench. He was an excellent lawyer and an even more excellent person.
There were people that have been inducted that he greatly admired. It would make him happy to be inducted with such people that he really admired and wanted to be like.
Thank you, Ms. Demanis, for that introduction. And thank you, Mary Berenger, Peter Doft, and Matthew Sander for that wonderful tribute to a man that was truly larger than life. Our next inductee is Mr. John Cleary, who will be presented by Mr. Chuck Sevilla.
Hi, my name is Chuck Sevilla. For over 20 years, I was John Cleary's law partner, and we practiced criminal defense, trial, and appeals. Actually, that was 25 years if you count our 5 years together at Federal Defenders of San Diego. He was my good friend, a mentor for almost 50 years. As with all the honorees tonight, a few minutes cannot possibly begin to cover all of their accomplishments or the content of their character. But suffice it to say, John was a magnificent lawyer, a brilliant lawyer, an author, a teacher. He spoke 3 languages in addition to English: Russian, Chinese, and Spanish. He loved to embrace challenges. And thus, after he left our law firm, he went to Russia to get a master's and then a doctorate in Russian language. And he did get a PhD at Moscow State University. They were so impressed with him, they made him a faculty member. And then he started bringing Russian law students over to the United States for an exchange program. And that went on for 6 or 7 years. And many friends were made here in the United States with those students who got a fresh view of our law and the United States. He did the same thing in Xiamen, China. After he finished with his PhD program, he decided to go to China and learn Mandarin. And then he started the same type of exchange program with the law students there and brought them to the United States. And then, as he did with the Russian program, he took American students over to China for them to learn comparative law. John had an insatiable, inquisitive spirit. He was always enthusiastic about everything he did, and he lived a life to the fullest. And despite his many achievements, he was a modest man and never a self-promoter. He helped create the Federal Defender Program here in San Diego. In the late 60s, he was working at the National Defender Project and going around the country giving grants for them, communities, to start defender projects. And he did that in San Diego. Ironically, in 1971, they invited him to become the first executive director of the San Diego Office of Federal Defenders. And he did so for the next 13 years until I enticed him away to join our new partnership. During the time he was in the office, he mentored scores of lawyers, many of whom we know today as very successful, honorable members of the bar, and they owe a great debt to John Cleary for his teaching them, and particularly teaching us to be successful advocates and what the meaning of advocacy for our indigent clients was. He made the San Diego office a role model for offices throughout the country, and it still is. He was truly a champion of justice for all. So John made San Diego and the world at large a better place. And on July 30th at 3:30, we're going to have a live celebration of his life at the Westin Gaslamp Hotel in Horton Plaza. So if you're interested in attending, please get a hold of me. And now please enjoy the memorial presentation for John. The most unforgettable person I ever met. He was full of enthusiasm for life. He was incredibly knowledgeable, a voracious reader.
John J. Cleary was truly the real deal. He was not only brilliant in IQ, he was even more brilliant in EQ, emotional quotient.
John got a PhD in Russian language, was invited to teach at Moscow State University, teaching in Russian to Russian students at the law school.
Loved nature, loved people, loved learning. He was very interested in people's lives. He was a humanitarian like very few people I've ever seen.
He decided he would learn Mandarin Chinese, so he moved to China and took up Mandarin there for 3 years. And this is all after he retired from the practice of law.
My first jury trial, that was at Federal Defenders. Acquittals were so rare. We celebrated with confetti that we made. First person I wanted to call was John Cleary. I was excited. And I said, John, I got an acquittal. And he said, you didn't get an acquittal. The jury gave it to you. Don't go celebrate. Don't become arrogant. Go visit a client at the jail that you probably neglected because of your trial.
He took 6 cases to the United States Supreme Court. When you went up for oral argument in the Ninth Circuit, they would tell you, we've read everything in the brief, so don't repeat it. And there was a heavy encouragement not to argue much. So John asked for 25 minutes. I want 1 minute for every year of sentence my client received. And that got their attention.
Okay. And so as a lawyer, John Cleary, the same person who wore combat boots everywhere and hiking boots everywhere, long hair, crazy provocateur that he was, as a lawyer, he was off the charts as a lawyer. His knowledge of the law, his knowledge of people and judges.
John's practice area was criminal defense, took over the Federal Defender Office in 1971. He created a model office, which was a model for offices throughout the country. Those of us who went through that office owe a great debt of gratitude to John for his teaching us to become fine advocates on behalf of our clients.
I met him in 1974 when I was a young man out of control, and he took me under his wing and saved me from myself. I was described as an inner city troubled Hispanic youth. One of the places I applied was Federal Defenders, not wanting to work there. I didn't like lawyers. And that's when I met John Cleary as he ran up the stairs wearing hiking boots and a green suit.
He would be most proud of the work he did in training attorneys to go on to be successful. He established exchange programs for students. So he would bring 20 or so Russians out and do a comparative law training class for a month. And then he would take 20 or so Americans to Russia to do the same thing. And he did the same thing when he was in China. And in this fashion, he became kind of a cultural ambassador.
He basically told me that if I really wanted to do something about bad lawyers, then I should become a lawyer myself and make a difference from the inside and really take up a challenge instead of mouthing off the way I was. And here I am. I'm a lawyer today, 37 years.
He was famous for wearing Army combat boots, even when he wore a three-piece suit to go to argue in the United States Supreme Court. He was humble in that respect. He was not self-aggrandizing in the least, despite the fact he had many, many, many noble and notable accomplishments. He led a very Spartan lifestyle. He was not a person who sought money and creating great wealth.
John J. Cleary was universally respected and universally loved. I received emails from people from Russia, from China, one from Vietnam. He saved a bunch of people from all kinds of backgrounds who were outliers and a lot of minorities. He was ahead of most people philosophically and politically, and he had a tremendous heart of gold.
What wonderful remembrances of Mr. Cleary and the impact he had on so many. Thank you, Chuck Sevilla and Ezequiel Cortez, for sharing your stories. We will now have Chief Judge Dana Sabraw speak a few words about Judge William Enright.
Well, thank you and good evening. I have the distinct honor to speak on behalf of my colleagues about our dear friend and colleague, Judge William B. Enright, who I believe is the most iconic, most revered trial lawyer and judge in the history of San Diego. He's the embodiment of the greatest generation, having served in the Navy in World War II and the Pacific Theater. He was a truly remarkable man. He had an indomitable spirit, an unparalleled skill set as a trial lawyer and judge. He was a gifted storyteller, blessed with a marvelous baritone voice, the voice of God, we would say. And he is my personal hero and mentor, as I know he is to so many of you. Over the course of 22 years as a trial lawyer, beginning in 1950, Judge Enright tried 223 cases to verdict, both as a prosecutor and a defense attorney, a remarkable feat. He quickly developed a reputation as one of the finest trial lawyers in San Diego and the state. Many lawyers watched him to learn from the master and to emulate him. They would say when Judge Enright gave his closing arguments, the clocks stopped. He was that effective and that mesmerizing. So of course, Judge Enright would be inducted into the American College of Trial Lawyers for his prowess in the trial arena. But he had much more to contribute during that very same time in his life. He had a sense of duty and service that was emblematic of the greatest generation. He served our legal community as county bar president in 1965 and as vice president of the state bar thereafter. And he was most proud of that service. He was a consensus choice to the federal bench in 1972. A Republican president would nominate Democrat William B. Enright to the federal bench in what was then described as a rare political crossover. But that was no surprise given his enormous stature in the community. Judge Enright served 48 distinguished years on our federal bench to his last breath at age 94, 28 years as an active and senior judge, and 20 years in emeritus status, attending almost every Monday judges meeting, a very rich tradition that he himself set in place, fostering a level of collegiality unmatched in the country's 93 other district courts. And during his tenure, Judge Enright presided over more than 300 jury trials. Our former chief judge and himself a fellow in the American College of Trial Lawyers, Larry Burns, said this of Judge Enright, simply the finest trial judge he ever appeared before. And Judge Enright also served on 17 different judicial conference committees at the circuit and national levels. 17, that is also a remarkable feat by any measure. But perhaps his greatest legacy resides in his contributions to the American Inns of Court. He was a major force in the Inn of Court movement nationally. He worked closely with Chief Justice William Berger in seeing the inn to fruition. He was a founding member of San Diego's first Inn of Court, the Welsh Inn. And of course, in 1991, our legal community honored Judge Enright and the legacy he set in civility, ethics, professionalism, and excellence in the practice of law by naming the second American Inn of Court after him, the William B. Enright American Inn of Court. So quite simply, Judge Enright changed the course of our court. As my colleague Jeff Miller says, Judge Enright was the heart, the soul, and the voice of our bench for decades. He was our navigational star, and that is so true. Our lives are immeasurably enriched by the example of Judge Enright. My colleagues and I miss him very much, and we thank you for the opportunity to honor him tonight. You are now going to be treated to a wonderful video tribute in Judge Enright's honor by my dear colleagues, Judge Kevin Enright, Joan Weber, and Gonzalo Curiel.
He was a wonderful father, a man of great honesty and integrity. He was always positive, and he really possessed an irrepressible buoyancy.
He was my professional mentor. He is the person who inspired me to become a judge.
He was assured, he was charismatic, he was wise, and an unparalleled public speaker. He could be intimidating, but kind of intimidating in the way that God would be intimidating.
He was really a force of nature, a man of uncommon character and grace. His intellect and his tenacity made him a fine trial lawyer.
He was amazing to try a case in front of. When the trial had concluded, I would make an appointment to go see him in chambers. He would have this green trial notebook with copious notes of the entire trial, and he would critique my trial performance.
He was certainly a member of the greatest generation. As he experienced the Depression, he would have experienced the World War II. Judge Enright had a sense of duty. At the age of 17, received his mother's permission to join the Navy. His greatness was a product of overcoming great hardship, and those things made him very grateful.
His view was, let the lions come. Smooth seas never made a skilled navigator. He viewed those trials and tribulations as a character builder, and it would just make him stronger.
I've always admired him in terms of his professional life and his personal life. He was tremendously proud of his wife and his 3 children.
He just lived life fully. You'd hear him going down the hall and he'd be whistling and he'd be singing, but he was most grateful for his family, for his beautiful wife, Betty.
His practice area was, he was in the district attorney's office. Then he was criminal defense. He tried 223 jury trials to verdict.
Judge Enright would write me personal, handwritten letters. When he would read about a speech I would make or a difficult trial that I presided over. Who does that type of mentoring anymore? And he did this not only for me, but for many other lawyers during his entire tenure on the bench.
Judge Enright was an old school judge in the best way, being formal, but not pretentious. He was powerful, but he never flaunted his power. He demanded respect from those who appeared in front of him, but he gave that respect back to everyone.
He was a firm believer in the level playing field. Everyone gets a fair shot in front of the jury, and he would maintain control of the courtroom so that everyone knew exactly what they could and could not do in trial in front of the jury.
Mentoring became a signature of Judge Enright's career. He helped start the first Inn of Court in San Diego, the Welsh Inn, in the early 90s. When the second inn was started, the name chosen was, of course, of the legend, Judge William Enright.
He had an appreciation for history. He had appreciation for stories of the common man doing extraordinary things. And that, I think, led to him recognizing the importance of memorializing the achievements of great lawyers, of great people in the community.
He would always emphasize not only the importance of maintaining your professional reputation at all times, but also the need to take pride in this esteemed profession that we've chosen to be a part of.
He's my hero. He's my true inspiration. I could not have had a better role model as a boy, a young man, a lawyer, a judge. And what he would do with his positive personality, always positive, was to inspire those around him to be the best they could be.
Thank you for that inspiring introduction, Judge Sabraw. And thank you, Judge Kevin Enright, Judge Curiel, and Judge Weber for those moving commentaries about a man who was a mentor to so many for so long. Our fourth inductee tonight is Mr. Anthony Medina, who will be presented by Mr. Kyle Hargrave.
Good evening. I'm Kyle Hargrave, friend and colleague of Mr. Anthony Medina. I'd like to start by thanking the San Diego County Bar Association for recognizing Anthony Medina on behalf of all of us down at People's Legal Services. Anthony and I graduated California Western School of Law in 2012, but by that time I was already used to being an attendee for Anthony's award ceremonies, which range from academic excellence to pro bono honors. So it is of no surprise that I'm here, continuing the tradition of attending his award ceremonies even after his passing. As an attorney, Anthony never put his personal ambition above his dedication to others. For him, there was never two distinct categories. This is because Anthony never saw himself as an individual. He understood himself as part of a larger community. His personal ambition was inextricably tied to his passions to serve his community. Anthony would never consider his belly full if his neighbor was hungry. His compassion for others was only rivaled by his zeal in the courtroom. He strove to provide high quality representation to those in our society that are often left without an advocate. Access to justice, Anthony believed, should not depend on one's access to cash. Anthony is being recognized not only because he was a visionary, but because he acted to breathe life into his vision. Where I would sit and complain about wealth disparity or socioeconomic obstacles inherent in our legal system, Anthony would respond, yeah, but what are you doing about it? Anthony did not allow himself to be bogged down by today's tribulations because he was already focused on making tomorrow better. It's not how bad it is now, but how are we going to improve as we move into the future? His greatness lies in his commitment to his community. His legacy is his embodiment of what happens when you turn your dreams into reality. So please enjoy this video of my personal hero, Mr. Anthony Medina.
Anthony's personality was very energetic. He was very caring, compassionate about everyone.
Anthony was always the person who was happy. He was super friendly, and he was always eager to meet friends.
Vibrant. He was very funny. He was definitely the life of a party. He was the type of person that would make you laugh.
Very generous and giving of his time. He made everyone feel at ease to be around him. He loved life.
He would go out of his way to help his friends who needed his help. Anthony was one of the most intelligent people I have known.
He was very well spoken. He had the ability to code switch. He was from South Bay and he was able to fit in very well with his friends, go from joking one moment and then walk into the courtroom the next and just totally turn it on and be there for his clients in a very professional manner.
I considered him to be Chula Vista's Good Will Hunting. He was just very bright and very caring.
Hiking. He loved hiking and he loved hanging out with friends and enjoying music. The one that he enjoyed the most was his passion for classic cars.
His greatest strength as a lawyer was his empathy, his ability to understand his clients. I think his clients really felt seen. I think they felt important. And it's something that he really brought into developing his nonprofit.
Anthony's greatest strengths as a lawyer was the compassion that he brought to each and every client. He genuinely cared about people and wanted to get the best outcome for his clients.
Anthony was the type of person that said yes to you for everything. If you asked for help, if you asked for advice, he was always there. He was always willing to help. It's kind of incredible to see how many people saw him as their best friend because he really was. He was there for so many people.
People's Legal Services, it's a sliding scale nonprofit where his vision was, I want to be able to help clients who are not able to afford private attorneys and do not qualify for free services at a nonprofit.
Anthony was passionate about providing access to justice for as many people as possible that needed it. He had a sliding scale, discounted rates to a lot of people who really needed it but couldn't quite qualify for free legal services.
Nonprofit law firm, completely new model that Anthony brought to San Diego. It provides an avenue for people who would otherwise not have access to quality legal representation to really have an affordable and excellent attorney represent them.
Anthony created a very strong board and we are his closest friends and colleagues, and all of us, as soon as we learned of his passing, we came together so we can continue his legacy.
He stood for so much more than what it is to be an attorney. He stood for what it is to be a member of the San Diego community, invested in the community.
Anthony's legacy will be reflected in the vision that he had for People's Legal Services. When he started this nonprofit, it was for the benefit of the community because he always wanted to make sure that the community that he grew up in, which was Chula Vista, would be represented.
I think his legacy can also be summed up in one of his final Facebook posts, which was a memoriam to a Father Brown, pastor of his, in which he wrote that Father Brown's lessons on empathy, family, love, and God are some of my earliest memories, literally formative. We can only aspire to leave a legacy of love and helping others as he did. I think Anthony accomplished just that.
Thank you for that introduction, Mr. Hargrave, and for that wonderful tribute, Joel Goldberg, June Wen Mora, and Michelle Luna Renilsa, about a giving man that left us too soon. And now we honor our next inductee, Mr. Brian Monahan, who will be presented by Mr. David Casey.
Thank you very Thank you very much. I am Dave Casey, and I can tell you Brian was a dear friend of mine for 45 years. A former governor of the state of California once said he would rather face Jesse Ventura in the wrestling ring than face Brian Monahan in court. That's the type of trial lawyer Brian was. I've had a chance to meet a lot of trial lawyers over the last 45 years, and without question, Brian was one of the most gifted and talented trial lawyers in the history of California. From his beginning at Loose Forward, he began to win verdict after verdict. He achieved verdicts over $100 million when nobody could even imagine a verdict in that range. His last case, where he represented Dr. Thomas Self, who put the interest of a young patient he was treating before the business that he was working for, was one of his greatest verdicts. He had a wonderful way of connecting with jurors. He had a true Irish charm. And when he was in a trial, that was his whole world. He used to talk about filling up a bathtub with all the information about a case and just immersing himself. And when it was done, he would let it flow out. He had this wonderful ability to connect with jurors to such an extent that he began to face motions constantly in trial, motions in limine, to prohibit him from telling Irish stories to the jurors before the case went forward. His achievements in trial were extraordinary and legendary. Cal Abota, which is made up of both the top civil trial lawyers in the state on the defense side and the plaintiff side, voted him as the top trial lawyer of the year in the state of California. The San Diego Trial Bar recognized 3 different times that he was the top trial lawyer of the year. That's unprecedented and has never been achieved since. In his last case, the Self case, the Association of Trial Lawyers of America recognized him as the top trial lawyer that year in the United States for his representation of Dr. Self, giving him the Stephen Sharp Award. And, you know, as Brian came along, he would lecture. I can remember going to many of his talks where he would excite the rest of us to try to learn just a little bit of what Brian could achieve. He inspired many of us, and he mentored many of us. And there were lawyers who wanted to go into the plaintiff's profession. He said, look, I'll bankroll you, and if you succeed, let me know how it goes. He was very generous. He was a giant in the profession. In 1998, right after the Self trial, I remember being at dinner with he and Jerry, and we learned that he had been diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma cancer. It had gone to metastasize to 2 parts of his brain, and he had a 15% chance of survival. Always a fighter, with the love of his life, Jerry, he fought back. And with his humor, his self-effacement, his determination, and an incredible positive attitude, he beat back that cancer, which was so difficult to deal with. He began a new journey in life in 1998. And in that journey, in defeating cancer, he wrote about it in a book that he and Jerry put together, The Power of Two. And it talks about an advocate, that was Jerry, and attitude. And believe me, Brian had the right attitude. He began to give back in the community. He served on the board of Hastings Law School, on the board for the Old Globe, on the board for the Padres, the board for the American Ireland Fund, and he established and helped create a clinic at USD to help veterans, which continues to this day. And then he would on a weekly basis, go and visit veterans at the hospitals. But I'll tell you, the biggest gift Brian Monahan gave was not in that regard. It was to his family and to his friends. Those of us who were lucky enough to call Brian a friend had our lives enormously enriched because of him and his love, his compassion, his empathy. He's a person that I truly loved, and I will dearly miss him. And we are very honored to have him in our community. He made a big difference. And I hope you enjoy the special video dedicated to Brian.
very warm, very personable, happy, outgoing, self-assured, as well as he knew how to talk. The thing he was really good at was listening.
He was kind, he was caring, he loved working for his clients and people around him, but he was a fighter. He would go to battle for those clients.
Brian was the biggest kid I had ever known. He was enthusiastic, curious, smart, playful, full of life. He got the most out of every moment, and he always had a twinkle in his eye.
He had a special sort of look about him. He would lean in, he would cock his head down like this, and it was like, you're the most important person in the world to him right now.
He was absolutely fabulous in a courtroom. He had an ability to connect with jurors that I've never seen before, and most other people haven't.
He had gone to the U.S. Naval Academy, so that experience informed the rest of his life in terms of his commitment to service to military veterans, whether it's going to visit with them at Balboa Hospital or being part of the Veterans Legal Clinic.
And what he loved to do was try cases. And he loved to talk about trial lawyers, and he loved to talk about tactics.
In 1998, Brian was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma, which had metastasized to 2 brain tumors. And that controls your speech and your ability to communicate. So when he could no longer practice law, he decided to pay it forward. He decided we should write a book. And the sole purpose of the book was in trying to help other people who were fighting a devastating illness. We went on book tour across the country.
He was just curious about many, many things, which was fun. So you were always learning when you were with him.
Brian was bigger than life at many times. You know, he was 6'3" and a big guy. He occupied a room. People came towards him. They were attracted to the smile, the sense of caring for other people.
Brian was the dragon slayer. Brian was a guy that knew how to fight, and he wasn't afraid to fight for causes he believed were just.
He decided to try and help veterans. He was instrumental in putting together the Veterans Legal Clinic. And with the help of Jerry Kohlberg and the Kohlberg Foundation, they made that a reality at USD. He also worked with the veterans down at Balboa Hospital, went every week, brought lunch on Thursdays, sat and talked to them, and Brian considered it his personal mission to make them laugh.
As a litigator, he was not a shrinking violet. He was all in all the time. He was energized by the conflict in a case. He fought with every ounce of his being for his clients, and he mesmerized juries.
The gift of Brian as a wonderful father, an incredible stepfather, awesome grandfather, and a fabulous, wonderful, loving husband is a gift that we cherish to this day. He was a fabulous grandfather.
He was constantly teaching other lawyers about his with his abilities and his experiences. He served as a ever-present mentor to young lawyers or even law students, and he would support them, and even to the point of financially supporting them.
I think it's a wonderful thing that he's being recognized for his contribution to the San Diego legal community and for real justice.
I think it's wonderful for Brian. I know he'd be delighted. I also know that he would be very proud to be a part of the group of wonderful, marvelous lawyers who are being honored this time. He would want us all to go out and seize the moment like he did and live life to the fullest.
Brian Dennis Sean Monahan may well be a legend in the legal community, but for our family, he's an even greater legend. This honor is especially rewarding for myself and the rest of our family.
Thank you, Mr. Casey, and thank you, Milton Silverman, Jerry Monahan, and Virginia Nelson, for sharing your heartfelt thoughts and stories with us about someone who touched so many souls. Our sixth and final inductee, Mr. Peter Kwan Jr., will be presented by Ms. Erica Hiramatsu.
I'm Erica Hiramatsu. I worked with Peter Kwan at the State Attorney General's office, where he was my mentor and supervisor. But well before that, I met him as a law student member of Pan Asian Lawyers of San Diego. I could go on for 5 minutes or more easily, describing all the awards and recognition Peter garnered over the years. But for one thing, I've only been given 2 minutes to speak. And for another, I don't think that's how Peter would want to be remembered. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "A sign of a good leader is not how many followers you have, but how many leaders you create." Of Peter Kwan, I would say this: a great leader is someone who inspires others to be great leaders. Of the numerous tributes I saw to Peter online, the 2 words most frequently used were leader and mentor. Peter's legal career included both prosecution and criminal defense, jury trials and appeals, civil and criminal law, and state and federal courts. As a supervising attorney in the State Attorney General's office, Peter helped to hone the legal skills of attorneys who are now themselves supervising attorneys. He also leaves a legacy of scores of published state and federal appellate cases in which he was the primary or supervising deputy attorney general. But I'm sure Peter would be more proud of the fact that there are law students and junior attorneys today whose mentors are mentees of Peter's. With all the functions he attended, events for which he volunteered, and lunches he hosted for his mentees, it's a wonder his wife, Denise, didn't divorce him. Denise once told him, "Your mother always said the reason I married you was because no one else could live with you." Had COVID-19 not prevented the in-person celebration of his career today, I would ask those in attendance to raise your hand if Peter Kwan helped you at some point in your career. I'm certain even Peter would be dumbfounded by the number of people who consider him a mentor. And now please enjoy this video memorial presentation.
My dad had an incredibly strong moral compass. He always taught my brother, first and foremost, to focus on honesty, education, and working hard to do our very best.
Peter was very warm. He was very generous. He was kind. He was insightful and thoughtful. He was very patient with everyone. He had a quirky sense of humor and an infectious laugh. And so it was really a joy to be around him.
Kind, generous, very modest in his accomplishments, an excellent listener. He was the kind of supervisor that every new attorney wanted to be on his team.
My dad was just incredibly selfless. He never talked to us about his individual accomplishments. His passion really was to help others. He dedicated his life to volunteering, being a mentor to so many young or aspiring lawyers in San Diego.
He liked to travel. He also spent a lot of time with his family.
Later in life, you just really love to travel. He and his wife would just travel the entire globe, just trying different things out, not traveling by itinerary, but really kind of going off of spontaneity and spur of the moment. I will always remember him as the person who loved going to the San Diego County Fair. He always wanted us to follow our passions, no matter where they led. And he was completely supportive in all of those endeavors.
People came to him not just for the legal advice or guidance, but also for life issues. I guess the term now is life coach. I guess that's the best way I could describe Peter as a life coach.
He was very well respected in the legal profession by both judges and lawyers. He was very well known for his generosity in terms of spending his time on students. He would often organize outings for young lawyers and young law students to visit with state and federal judges.
He was a deputy attorney general for almost 30 years, and then he was a deputy district attorney. He was always like the first person in, the last person to leave. He worked incredibly hard. I think he felt a huge responsibility to be able to represent the legal profession in the right way.
He was the type of supervisor that would never just give you the answer or show you. He would allow you to work through the problem so that you learned it. And I think that makes the best kind of supervisor. So when people got on his team, they never wanted to leave.
He had this amazing ability to sort of guide young lawyers to understand very difficult and challenging concepts, to really be confident in their arguments and confident in their ability to analyze very complicated legal issues.
Serving as a mentor to a lot of young lawyers who are looking to establish themselves in the legal field. Oftentimes he would connect young lawyers to others more established in the field, either through dinners or lunches.
At Christmas time, one of his hallmarks was to treat the support staff. He'd go and buy tons of boxes of See's candy and then personally deliver them with handwritten notes, thanking them for their service, letting them know how appreciated they were, because he always saw our legal profession as a team effort.
He would be most proud of creating connections between different diversity bar organizations. He was very passionate about making sure the affinity bar organizations, as well as the San Diego County Bar, collaborated to create programming that would benefit, young, diverse students as well as lawyers.
His legacy, or his greatest accomplishment, can be really seen in the lives of all of the young lawyers that he mentored and that looked up to him. It was so important to him to pay it forward and to really help lawyers who are just looking to break out, helping to push them forward in the profession.
He promoted his entire 4 decades as a lawyer, inclusion and diversity and equality in the legal profession. And he helped develop and found many diversity bar groups in our community.
What he did really touched and positively impacted so many people. While he personally didn't care about recognition, what he cared about was knowing that he made a difference. And I think this award is reflective of that impact.
So he had this great strength in inspiring people to be able to believe in themselves and be able to do things that they thought was beyond their ability, as well as being many men and women who were mentored by him and still continue to sort of put forth his ideology of creating equal access to justice and increasing the diversity in the legal profession.
One person at a time. I mean, he affected countless law students and lawyers and judges in our community. And I think that's the legacy that I think he would be most proud of.
He did what he loved as long as he could, even to those points in time when we said he should stop. He wanted to keep going. The one thing that he was concerned with, that he really wanted to know, was that he made a difference.
Thank you, Ms. Hiramatsu, for that introduction, and to Jeffrey Kwan, Lynn Lamb, and Lilia Garcia for those impactful words of someone who made a difference in the lives of so many. For the foundation, the Distinguished Lawyer Memorial is about honoring the legacies and careers of those distinguished lawyers and judges who are no longer with us. We do this by raising money in their names to support the work they were committed to during their lifetimes that align with the mission of the foundation. Please remember that you can offer your remembrance and support by making a donation online at sbcbf.org/donate DLM or at Venmo at SDCBF. And if you're unable to give tonight, please consider naming the Bar Foundation as a beneficiary in your will or trust to ensure our important work continues. I want to again thank the families, friends, colleagues of our 6 distinguished honorees for participating this evening, and especially to those of you who spoke on each inductee's behalf. Special thanks to Eternal Roots and Tom Ladegaard for creating the memorial videos presented tonight, and for those that took the time to be interviewed and share their heartfelt remembrances. I also want to recognize our Executive Director, Adrian Davis, and several of our board members for putting together the program for tonight's event, including Diana Corey, Gail Blatt, Catherine Fox, Alana McMains, and Neil Rockwood. And I again thank all of you for joining us tonight to honor the 2021 inductees who have served our profession and our community so well and truly deserve their place in the Distinguished Lawyer Memorial. Each inductee receives a plaque that is mounted permanently in the San Diego Hall of Justice. Their memorial videos will be available to view anytime at sdcbf.org by navigating to the Past Honorees page of our website. We will now provide time to reflect on the evening with family, friends, and colleagues of each of our honorees by offering inductee-specific breakout rooms. This is voluntary, and once placed in a room, you're able to leave or switch rooms at any time by clicking on the breakout icon on your Zoom menu bar and clicking the join link besides your chosen room, or by returning to the main room where we can assist you to another one. These rooms will remain open until 7:30, and you can leave the discussion and the meeting at any time by clicking the Leave Room or Leave Meeting buttons. We hope you will take advantage of this opportunity to connect and reminisce with one another. Thank you for your caring and support of our honorees and for your support of the foundation. Good night.